Hi friends, this is Cara-Renee with B.Reborn Art and Healing. Today I'm working on a 9 by 12 canvas panel, and I'm using Prima Marketing Georgia Blues paper collection along with their flowers. And I'm going to be using all of these products. Other than that olive green I didn't end up using. And the colors of the magicals didn't end up turning out quite like I wanted them to, but in the end, the project turned out really beautiful. So this is the Georgia Blues selection. It's absolutely gorgeous. I've done some other projects with it, and it's just gorgeous. I love it. And then those are the flowers that I will be using. And I'm going to be, and that's just me showing you that it's just a thin canvas panel, not any depth to it at all. I'm going to give the canvas a coat of gesso just to kind of seal it, as I didn't really know where I was going with this entirely and wanted to make sure that I could add mediums if I wanted to. I didn't end up adding a lot of wet medium to this project. And here I'm going to cut the length of those papers down to 9 inches because that is the height of my canvas. I'm doing a landscape view here. And so I'm just going to cut all those papers down and get them all ready. And then I'm going to tear them into strips. And they're going to be layered on each side of the canvas. And it was really beautiful. It was an experiment. And at points during the project, I was like, I don't know if this is really going to work out. But I just kept at it and kept revising and fixing. And it ended up turning out really beautiful. And all of these papers are coordinating, so they go together really well and create a really nice project. So I'm additionally going to be using my Tim Holtz Distress tool to distress the edges of all of my papers. I really wanted this to have kind of that feel, and I was kind of just going with the flow and ended up really darkening up this paper, which in retrospect, I wish that I would have kept the white of the paper. But again, I just kind of get lost in the zone and just do what feels right at the time. And there I was just showing you the texture that's created by using this distress tool. It kind of shreds the edges and makes them rough. And I really like that. I say I really like that a lot, so forgive me for that. It's late. It's about 11 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, and I'm trying to get this video done so that it can upload overnight because it does take about 8 hours out here where I live, and that is with it at a lower resolution and just live out in the country, and it's a challenge. So, and here I'm just adding some sepia archival ink to the edges of all of those strips, as well as the hearts that you see there. Again, I wanted it to have a really distressed look, and where I was going isn't where I ended up. But again, as I've mentioned in other videos, I can usually recover it and feel pretty satisfied with what I end up with. This one took a lot of stepping away and coming back and looking at it with new eyes. So, and then there's what the sepia edging does to those papers. And here I'm going to give each of those strips and the hearts a layer of clear gesso because I didn't want to take away from the print of the paper. I wanted it to remain true to its original form. And again, as I mentioned, I do a glaze and I end up taking that vibrancy down, but in the end it worked out okay. And here I'm just creating a strip for the center of the canvas, which is where my focal point is going to be. And I'm adhering that as usual with golden matte medium, as I do all of my papers. And this is where my my double hearts are going to go, as well as my flower arrangement and my little words, which is actually going to say live loved. And I'm actually going to be writing a blog post, which will post with this video not only on my Facebook business page, but also on YouTube and my blog on my website. This is called My Sunday's Art of Truth, where I pick something that's really resonated with me during a particular week or month sometimes, and I write about it and kind of write in a deeper way what the project means to me and how I ended up there. And then here I'm going to use the sepia ink again to create my sentiment. And again, this is going to say live, loved. And you will see me in a few moments go back and find a comma, because it seemed really important that I had a comma after the live, because the comma tells me kind of pause. You know, it's a broken thought, and I wanted it to say live, comma, loved, live, loved. And that's the message for this piece. And it's a message for me primarily, but you'll have to go back and you'll have to read the blog, go to my website, and you'll be able to see it there after this video posts. And then here I'm going to go ahead and cut out that sentiment into just two little strips of paper. And then I'm going to also distress the edges of that and give it a layer of that edging with the sepia. Oh, and there I found my comma. It was really important. It seemed like I wasn't able to move on without it. I'm not sure why that seemed so important, but I knew in my heart that it was. So, and there's just the edging with the sepia ink, and live, loved. It's a really confounding kind of concept that I hope I'll be able to share in a way that makes sense for people. And then here I'm just going to start adhering these strips of paper. And again, they have been distressed on the edges, so they look like they've kind of been peeled up and kind of irregular as they meet each other, because I put one sheet or one of the strips underneath the strip that's on top of it. As you're seeing here. And I do kind of cut out part of that because you don't need to see me laying down every piece. And here I'm doing it on the left side as well. I really liked the effect. I kind of wished that I had left them kind of not completely glued down, like they were sticking up in places. So if I ever try this kind of process again, I'll probably try to do that because I think it would be really pretty. But again, I was happy with how this turned out and really loved the paper that I chose for that middle section. And when I start applying the texture, you'll see kind of how beautiful that ended up being, because the flower shows up in between the texture that I apply to the center section. And that is the Crafter's Workshop Light and Fluffy Modeling Paste. I really like it because it's easy to spread on. It dries quickly and even more quickly with a heat tool. And so it's really nice for people that aren't very patient with the drying process. And I taught a workshop today, so I've been gone most of the day and came home and wanted to put this project together so I could get Sunday's Art of Truth up on my blog. So it was nice to have product here that I could just move through that texture process a little bit quicker. And there you can see the texture that's created. It was just kind of a swirly stencil that I used there. And here is the Lindy's Magical Yellow Rose of Texas is the color. And I haven't used these magicals much in mixed media. And so you'll see me kind of fussing around with how the color is laying down, as well as the colors blending and kind of becoming a color that I wasn't anticipating. I really wanted it to have some yellow and I wanted it to have some blue. But it ended up mixing and becoming green, even though I was drying in between layers. So I'll have to do a little research and see what I missed on that process that I was not able to get this to happen without the blue and the green or the blue and the yellow making green, because green was not what I was after. But again, in the end, it turned out beautiful. I add some gold. I add some of the Burnt Umber Light to that center section, and it turned out really great. But I love how when you hit this paint with water, it just travels along the edges of that texture, and it's really quite beautiful. And this is Liquitex. Goodness, I just lost that modeling paste, and I really like it too. It dries really hard. Oh, that's not actually what I used. I just told you that I used the TCW, the Crafters Workshop. Sorry about that. Usually I use the Liquitex modeling paste. And so that was just a close-up of how those colors mixed. And I didn't really want them to create a green. So I don't really know why that happened, but it's okay. It's mixed media. It can do whatever it wants to do, and I can work with that and make it what I want it to be. So, and then here I'm just going to kind of let that paint run a little bit, dabbing it back, just trying to control a little bit where those colors are landing. And then here I come in with the spray of that same Lindy's color, Yellow Rose of Texas. And I masked off my the sides because I didn't want any of that yellow to be on there. And this did spice it up a little bit. I still wasn't super happy because I felt like it was overtaking the project. And so I end up sealing it here with the matte medium, because I hoped that by doing that I would be able to add some layers on top without having that bleed through or affect the next layer. So, and it worked out fine. I'm going to apply some of the gold and fluid acrylic iridescent gold here in a little bit. And this is kind of where I went kind of sideways and wished that when I did this Burnt Umber Light glaze that I would have just glazed that center section rather than the entire panel. I think it would have been really beautiful to just have that Burnt Umber Light toning that center section rather than the papers, because it did take down the vibrancy of the beautiful navy colors of this paper. It's absolutely gorgeous, but it turned out okay once I was done messing with it. So, and there I'm just wiping back that glaze because I didn't want that to overtake the center section either. And there's a close-up of that texture. It's just so scrumptious. I love it. Love working with modeling paste or texture paste. And then here's the golden fluid iridescent gold, and I'm going to apply it to all the bits of that center section. And then later, you don't see me because I believe I lost the footage on it. I do just kind of touch my finger at various places on the canvas that are not part of that center section, just to kind of give it a little bit of a kick. And so I did some of the gold around the whole project, and then just here and there, as you'll see in the still photos at the end of the video. And then I had wiped back more of that Burnt Umber Light fluid acrylic. And so I went to put some more back on because I wanted it to really settle into all of those spaces where the texture is. And this did do it for me. I really liked that. And again, another close-up. It's just beautiful. Texture, just cannot get enough texture. I love it. And then here are the hearts that I cut out. And I'm also going to be distressing those, or maybe I did already distress them. Sorry, I'm a little lost. That's the Burnt Umber glaze, and I just left that gold on my mat there and just let it be part of this mixture. So here I'm giving the glaze to this paper. The thing that I did wrong here is I thought that by just giving it a coat of clear gesso that it would have allowed me to do more of my normal glaze technique, but it didn't, which was fine. It turned out just fine the way it was, but it didn't behave the same as I'm used to. And then here I'm giving my words a layer of the matte medium, because when you do a glaze over paper and ink, sometimes it can run or it can pill your paper when you try to pull that glaze back off. With those words, I didn't really want to take much of the brown off. They were perfect the way they were. And I apologize, that's a flash of my heavy gel medium, because this paper was a little bit thicker and I wanted it to just stick really well and really quickly. And so I do fuss a little bit here with the arrangement, moving it on over to the right so that it was a little bit more balanced. And that's the nice thing about these mediums, is that you do have time to move things around because they're not fast drying. And here I'm going to go ahead and do the same with the heavy gel, applying my words, live, loved. And by that, I mean that sometimes our attitude about how people love us or how they treat us, affects how we behave around people that love us. And again, you'll be able to read more of that story in my blog when I get that up on the website after this video posts. And here is some of the Prima flowers that go with that Georgia Blues collection. And here's where I was a little disappointed in having grunged up the paper part of this project, because if I had not, these flowers wouldn't have stood out as much as they did. But I do end up doing a lot of stuff to it. Some of it, unfortunately, is off camera. I tried first to apply a little bit of that iridescent gold just here and there. And then I did apply a dry brush of the Burnt Umber Light glaze, just barely touching the surface there, and that seemed to do the trick. And here I'm using the heavy gel again to apply my flowers, because they are more three-dimensional and I want to make sure that they adhere very well. And because it doesn't dry immediately, I'm going to have time to tuck my leaves in there and stuff without being too concerned about running out of time to do that. So they just slide in there really nice on the little wire. And so you can just watch here as I have applying all those flowers and the leaves. It's a beautiful collection. Georgia Blues was one of my favorites. I saw Tiffany Solario do it on one of her videos, use this paper collection, and I immediately had to go buy it because it was so beautiful. And it's got roses, and roses are just my thing. So typically not blue kinds of flowers, but this is a really beautiful collection. And then here are some butterflies that are also part of the collection that I really like. And again, I've mentioned in other videos, there's not very many projects that I do these days that doesn't have a butterfly in it. They're few and far between, but I really like them. And here is where I tried to, on this flower, I tried to just do a glaze on the dry flower, and it didn't work because a glaze needs some kind of surface, a slick surface on under it in order for it to behave like a glaze. So that didn't really work out very well. And then I apologize. Some of the touching up of this flower arrangement happens off camera, because I thought I was happy with it until I turned the camera off. And then I did go back and add some some more gold. I added a little bit more of that burnt umber, and it turned out really good in the end. So I hope that you enjoyed this video and that you will check back tomorrow when I post on the blog. And I hope you have a great Sunday. Thank you, and bye-bye.